I like the idea of incremental value and the vetting of each other. There's something that I'm not going to use the word trend, but I'm going to say trend in that context. There's something happening, it seems, where perhaps it's market, perhaps it's just the evolution of how partnerships are established, but more and more this idea of, it's so crass to say this way, but like try before you buy, right? Like it's dating, right? Let's hang out, we'll have a burger and a beer or whatever. Like let's go bowling, like whatever your kind of bag of tricks is, but like let's go and do something and see if we actually even want to spend more time together, versus the ideology of we have something you need, therefore you should partner with us. That assumptive behavior seems to be going by the wayside. It's much more in the forefront. It sounds like what you're describing here, the ideology of, if I kind of synthesize it, like look for the people that are already marketing to you or connected to you, or sort of like the people that are already extracting value from your business. Mm-hmm. Even if you're super early, like look for people that can benefit from what you're already doing. If you're late, you're a scaled up version of the same business. Look for people that are already engaged with you, but identify those value points, those moments where one or both of you, ideally both, can benefit from some sort of a collective engagement. And then the other part that I'm hearing you say is, kind of put your eggs in several baskets where appropriate, but be intentional about it. And when you do that, it's kind of an Americanized expression, but the idea of investing where you believe, and certainly if it's data centric, even better, you can get ROI back, you can get some value back. And then double clicking on and leaning into the idea of if and when we start to see those things happen. Obviously, you're talking about from a co-marketing perspective, we're writing content together, we're doing podcast, blogs, and all that kind of stuff, social media, that the audience is engaged. Then you start to have that validation of, this is an expression I've been using more, partner market fit. I don't know if it's mine or if I heard it somewhere. I still don't know kind of the ethos of it, but partner market fit in terms of, does this partnership actually work in the market that we're trying to capitalize on? And if yes, then we double down. If no, we look for another opportunity or something else. Am I in line with what you're describing?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's making sure that, again, talking about, if we go back to what I spoke about, how I even reach these partnerships at all. I already kind of do the research beforehand before I even reach out to them. And sometimes explaining who our target audience is in that initial shout out. Hey, listen, I think this is a good opportunity, is probably the best thing to do. It's incredibly important to do that beforehand. So when you do get into that conversation, you're not wasting anybody's time.
Yeah. I think it was, maybe it was Daniel Pink that said to sell is human. Is that what, I think it was him that talked about, somebody talked about it, but this idea of like it's what you're describing right now, which is like when you go and engage these folks in terms of partnership, you're not just working under the assumption that it definitely will work. Like it's all in, we know because you're not them. It's less assumptive. It sounds like it's a lot more around this idea of transparency and honesty and a directness. Maybe it's just me selfishly because I enjoy that. But like if someone's going to go and engage and say, I want to work with you, I want to date you, right? We can kind of use the same analogy. That openness that you're ideally leading off with begets openness. You're going to receive that in return. So if you come and say, what I'm hearing you say, obviously, but from a tactical perspective, hey, look, like we have a same, target audience. We have identified this opportunity. Like it's very clear that if we do this, we're both going to win better. Let's do it. You don't have the, it'd be cool if we hang out moment. You have the, I know you like to go fishing, so we're going fishing. And that connection, the connecting context to value feels like what you're describing to me is a better lead into your initial go-to-market around not just identifying, but actually working with partnerships to kick off the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm all for giving more than I get. For me, karma is a huge thing.
Oh, it's huge.
Karma, I believe in that, and I'm willing to take the L, the loss here, the actual loss, right? Like the delta of maybe doing a little bit more than they would, because I feel like that's the right thing to do. And in the long term, that's gonna pan out. It's something that it was very difficult for me in the beginning of my career to understand that. And I'm happy I eventually did, because I would always look for the quick wins, and then that's it. There's no conversations. Three, I can, again, I don't want to say names or anything, but there was a situation where I was able to, get their name on a specific product, and it was great. And I just did not talk to them at all after that. Then they ended up going to another company that was better. Not better, but bigger. And then I also moved, and then I wanted to do the exact same thing. And the person said to me, "Listen, Philip, like, I appreciate you coming back to me, but it was a horrible experience last time." I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Luckily, I learned that early in my career.
Yeah. And I think that you're actually spot on, because you're not the first person that said it. You're the first person that I've heard say it, probably the most open, which is just like, I didn't understand. I didn't have the perspective on it. And when I think about, choosing my target partners, and I think there's so much analysis. I mean, you see it on LinkedIn. I see it in my inbox. I hear it in my peers. Like, everyone's trying to figure out, is there another data point that I can consume to make sure this is the right move? And there was a leader that I learned from early on in my career who used to always talk about do first, then ask. This is in restaurants, like way back in the day, but do first, then ask. And it's, at the time, I mean, I was a kid. I had no idea. I just kind of went, yeah, sure. Okay. And I think he was talking about, I think I said this on your show too. Like, he was talking about a busser bussing a table or whatever it was. But contextually, when I think about that, and I do a lot, it kind of pops up in my head quite a bit. It's very much relevant to partnerships, because, and then you kind of reinforce that just now. We've talked about the different avenues you've explored. We've talked about, sort of all of the homework that you've done, the time you've spent to understand fit. But it really comes down to making a decision and going with it. And the best way to do that, I completely agree with you, is lead with value. Give. Someone recently said, fill their jar full of marbles, and then you can fill it full of sand. And it was sort of like an interesting analogy. But when you think about, or you picture that in your mind, if you're listening to this and you're picturing that jar, it's probably like a 10-inch jar. It's pretty tall. It's pretty robust. It's full of marbles of shapes and sizes. There's always more space to put more product in there. And if you fill it, then when you go and say, hey, can I take a marble out? The reality is that when you remove that marble, things settle a little bit, but it's not such a big gap. There's not this big, massive, gaping hole that you're dealing with. So what you're talking about in terms of partner marketing, what I'm picturing is, going to market with them initially, giving them content, having them be a guest. What are some of the things that you would do in that initial value opportunity to show them, like, hey, we're invested? What are some of the tactics and tools, techniques that you're using?
So, like I mentioned before, one of those things is show them that we explain to them how many contacts we have that are engaged.
Sure.
We show them traffic on site. We show them that we are a legitimate company that has a lot of customers. So, we have, I think it's around 15,000, 20,000 users plus minus that are using our application every single day. We're growing as I joined a line, I think it was September 1st or August 28th, four and a bit months ago. And the difference between now and then is that we have a presence now, right?
Yep.
And utilizing that to say, listen, we can use that to help you, right? And so okay, let's go down the list. So anything that's blog or text related, right? So they're definitely on our blog. Our newsletter is pretty big, right? Sponsoring, even though they're not really sponsoring, we're going to call it a sponsor, maybe because that gives it a little bit more of it gives it a little bit depth to that part of the newsletter.
Yeah, it's a good word. Yep.
Sponsoring a newsletter, even though they're not paying for it. Yep. I'm saying it out loud right now. I'm like, okay, what now? There's actually no sponsors on Align's newsletter. Whatever,
there are.
It's fine.
Yeah,
there are. Just that's an opportunity. They're paying for it by doing like they aren't traditionally giving us dollar bills.
Yeah.
But they are. The whole point here is co-marketing, right? So we're going to be sponsored on theirs, right? They're giving us another type of value, not necessarily monetary. So there's a newsletter. There is potential in-app opportunities. There is social media. Our social media is growing a lot now that we have a goals and we know what to do to push things forward. We're posting every single day, sometimes even twice a day, sometimes 3 times when I'm crazy. I'm like, okay, let's add some one more thing because it's
keep saying stuff
based on the day today. By the way, it's I think Mardi Gras starts in New Orleans.
Oh boy,
and that's where my company is. From January 6th to Ash I don't know. Sorry, some people bad. They're going to hate me right now. They don't know all the New Orleans historical facts, but Mardi Gras started today. So we're going to have 3 posts today, most likely, right? So using that's mostly it. I have in the past and will probably in the future with our current customers, current co-marketing opportunities, also maybe implement paid promotion as well.
Sure. Yep.
So something that's connected with both of us and putting some money to it. So maybe if we were to do a podcast in the future, pushing that with monetary. So we're both potentially doing that, saying, hey, let's do this 50-50. How much are you willing to put in? $1,000? No problem. We'll put in $1,000 as well.
Right. I
like to go a little bit over, $1,200, right? Just an extra 20% just to, be the person that gives a little bit more. Let's do that. So those are the main channels that I look into at the moment. And it doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes if I have opportunities and I speak to journalists, TechCrunch and stuff like that, mentioning them as well. So having them and say, listen, we have this opportunity. Maybe you can also be added. There's a bunch of blogs out there. Top 10 tech stack for leadership, for example. Yeah. Top 10 tech startups for leaderships, for example. Like I said, I already did the research. I know we're in the same bucket when it comes to target audience. As long as they're not direct competitors, which obviously I wouldn't do. That's just dumb. I would say, hey, listen, maybe put them in as well, right?
Yeah.
Just keeping all this stuff in mind. So those are probably the 5, 6, 7 things I lost count. But
no, it's good feedback. Yeah, and it's good thinking. And I think what I'm hearing to kind of distill this thing down is when you're talking about establishing kind of your beachhead, your offense in terms of which of these different avenues to go and pursue, it really comes down to thinking about the direct correlation between working with this type of business and how you and they both benefit from it. I heard a little bit about, thinking about the different avenues you just described, obviously to that point too. I heard a quote a while back that talked about how people always talk about TAM, right? Total addressable market. They always say, oh, it's this much, it's so big. And then they go and talk about what's our go-to-market strategy. But what about market creation? What about, category creation? What about this idea of going to market together because you create your own magnetism around the concepts, ideas, value that you're delivering to your types of customers, and you both win that way. So it's an interesting thought, and I appreciate you sharing. To wrap up today, so if folks want to get in touch with you, if they want to go and reach out on social media and such, where do they find you? How do they get in touch?
Most active on LinkedIn, just because the fact I actually removed myself from Facebook.
Smart.
So point. My personal Facebook, obviously business wise, I'm very in the woods there. But it would be LinkedIn, definitely 100% LinkedIn. Philip Kushmaro, that's my name. And obviously Align. So anything Align related for all the leaders out there, or CEOs and department heads that want to strategically grow their companies and departments. That's where you'd find me. Yes, LinkedIn. Definitely.
Perfect.
LinkedIn. Yes.
I love it. Well, it's been a fun conversation. It's great to see your face. I'm glad you're doing well. Appreciate the tidbits that you shared. It's been super helpful. Until next time, my friend, take care.